This morning's reading is a reading from Mark's Gospel, Mark chapter 16, verses 1 to 8. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so that they might go and anoint the body of Jesus. Very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. "Who will roll away the stone from the entrance of the tomb?" they asked one another. When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. Entering the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe, sitting on the right side. They were alarmed. He said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He is not here. He has been raised. Look, there is the place they laid him. Go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." They fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. In this is the gospel of Christ.
Words of life for the whole world. A poem reflection by Noel Davis. At the edge. It's scary and breathtaking, living at the edge of your life. Just you, the edge, and the vast unknown. And echoing down the valley of your heart, the constant call to trust. Yet how quickly that edge becomes a settled place without an echo, a niche to line and realign till you feel satisfied, lulled into complacency by the now safe edge, till your peace is undermined by a new awareness out beyond the edge of who you have become. It's scary and breathtaking, living at the edge of your life. It was for the three women who went to the tomb. They went to anoint a dead body, to mark with due reverence the untimely end of Jesus' life. But what they discovered was not a body. They discovered absence and some words about a new future that threw them into turmoil. They were terrified. Finding and attending to a corpse would have been more satisfactory. At that time, many Jews believed in a general resurrection at the end of history. Jesus actually believed that. And presumably he told his followers about it, including the two Marys and Salome who went to the tomb. At the end of time, God would raise up every person who had ever lived. The righteous would go to heaven, evildoers to eternal fire. However, what the women witnessed at the tomb did not align with this, nor anything else they knew. The young man dressed in a white robe spoke of only one resurrection, not a general resurrection, just one resurrection, Jesus. And all that was meant to accompany it had not taken place. History had not ended. Evildoers had not been punished. And the Roman imperial presence was very clearly still there. Pilate still ruled Judea. So the women stood at the edge of a precipice. It's scary and breathtaking, living at the edge of your life. They were caught between a world they knew too well, going about their daily lives, inspired by Jesus, but all too aware of Roman imperial power, which had just dispatched him to a shameful death. There was that world, and there was another world, known only in hope and promise, in which Jesus was alive. Imperial powers were thrown off. The brave and the good were recognised, and finally, there was justice and well-being. So which world would they opt for? Something had crept into their minds, well beyond the edge of their most optimistic dreams. Mark's account of the resurrection is very unusual. The risen Christ does not appear. The women are in turmoil, yet there is news of a strange hope. I call this resurrection in a minor key. The other Gospels and Paul veer towards writing resurrection in a major key. I think Mark's account has a lot to offer us because it corresponds with the lived experience of faith of so many and of the ambiguities that are history. Mark redefines resurrection. It's not the sudden emergence of a new world. It won't right wrongs in an instant. It's found amid the messiness of life. It emerges without proof to back it up. It's a hint. It's a new awareness that takes hold and unsettles because it points to something beyond, something unknown, something alluring, and something which when you touch it you realise is absolutely necessary. Over recent months, I've been very disturbed by the emerging allegations of sexual assault in our Houses of Parliament and the inadequate responses with which they've been met. I admit that I'm prone to a level of scepticism about what happens after courageous people go public. So I wonder, will there be justice for these women? Our society has a cruel tendency to re-traumatise victims rather than address their concerns. But then a new awareness comes to mind. The courage of Brittany Higgins going public about what happened to her, confronting shame, sharing her vulnerability. It might have been less difficult to try and push the memory aside. The victim, who documented historic allegations dating back to 1988, tragically, the trauma got the better of her and she took her own life. But her friends have taken up her cause. Her voice lives on through them. I call these things to mind and I cherish them, like the story of Janice McKenna and her gay friends. They speak of resurrection. It's usually those on the margins of society who bear witness to resurrection. Jesus, executed outside the city walls, victims of sexual assault, disbelieved, silenced and shamed. The The remarkable bravery of the protesters in Myanmar. No match for the army who confronts them. A new awareness takes hold amid the voices of anguish. And I stress it is an awareness. It's not fact. It's not conclusion. Facts seduce with the offer of certainty, but that is a seduction to be avoided. When we commute resurrection into a fact, we are drawn into triumphalism. We are pushing aside the deep faith that this narrative calls forth, and Mark's gospel cautions against it. That is Debbie Thomas, a biblical commentator, another woman of resurrection, who offers some very telling insights about Mark's story. She writes, "I wish that we, the church, could be more patient, more nuanced, more attuned to spiritual and psychological reality when we speak and share good news. Why the need to rush to resurrection and slap smiles and bows on the wounds of the world? Sometimes when people are in pain, good news hurts. It's too jarring, too dissonant, too grating, and it's hard to wrap language around it. At such moments, maybe the most faithful response to a disconnect between Christ's resurrection and continuing pain is a reverent silence. The women at the tomb waited before they spoke. They led with wounded awe, not premature consolation. They led with wounded awe, not premature consolation. Those insights are worth pondering. Today, we celebrate good news for the world. The resurrection unleashed a new awareness into our world. And our vocation in the church is to point to it and celebrate it. We don't own it. We point to it and we celebrate it wherever we see it. Sometimes gently and carefully, sometimes exuberantly. It's scary and breathtaking living at the edge of your life. Thanks be to God for the good news of resurrection. Amen. Friends, this morning, as a symbol of resurrection, we have some brightly coloured ribbons, and they're going to be dispersed through the whole congregation. And what I'm hoping for is, after they've been rolled out, that everyone will be able to take hold of one of the ribbons, so that we are all joined in this beautiful multicolour symbol of hope. And after that, Christine will offer the prayers of the people. So if I could have some volunteers to roll out the ribbons throughout the whole congregation,